Good morning, Year 5. Please have a look at the answers from yesterday's work. Pause the video here and then flick through the next couple of slides and you should have the answer to questions 1, 2 and question 3. So today's lesson is all about rounding decimals. We've come across rounding whole numbers before, earlier in the year, but today we're going to be looking at rounding decimals. So you might have noticed on the number line in front of you, I don't actually have any decimals just yet. But one of the key skills to be able to round is when we have a number line like this, is understanding the missing intervals, or how to work out what the missing intervals are. So we can very clearly see that this number line is going up in multiples of 10. And between each multiple of 10, there is an interval with no number on it. We know that this missing interval is exactly halfway between the two numbers. So let's take between 10 and 20. We know the gap between 10 and 20 is 10. So how do we work out what this line is that does not have a number? So we know that half of 10 is 5. So if half of 10 is 5, we know that this middle number here is going to be 15, because we know the difference between the two numbers is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we know that 10 to this middle gap is going to be 15, so 10 add 5 is 15, and we can check it by adding another 5, which gives us 20. So this is a really good skill to master, to be able to label the intervals on a number line that have no numbers. So let's keep going and fill in the remaining parts. So what do we think the gap's going to be here? What's the number going to be here? So we know the whole way is 10. When we split 10 into 2, we get 5. So we know that this number here is going to be 25. And then carrying on, 35, 45, and 55. Okay, so let's have a look at the number 33. We can now use our knowledge of this number line to place 33 on the number line. So we'd put it around here, because we know that it is more than 30, it's less than 40. We know that this middle number here is in fact 35. And we know that 33 is closer to 30 than it is to 40. We know it's going to go in between 30 and 35. So let's continue. Let's have a look at 57. So why do you think I've put 57? Why have I put 57 there? Okay, well, let's have a think. Let's have a think about what this interval is here. We know it's halfway between 50 and 60. We know our number line is going up in 10. Half of 10 is 5. So 50 add 5 would give us 55. And then we know that 57 is in between 55 and 60. So we've put our arrow pointing here. So now it's your turn. Have a look at the two arrows on the number line. What do you think each point is? What is this part here? What number is the arrow pointing to? Okay, so just remind yourself, what is the missing interval? So once you've worked out the missing interval, you can then make a very good estimate to work out what the missing number is here. Then move on to this one, have a think about what this missing interval is, and then make a very good estimate to try and work out the number. So pause the video there and have a go at that question. Okay, so this one here, we know, we would have worked out, hopefully, that this interval here is worth 15. Okay, so we know if that's worth 15, and then we look at our arrow and it's closest to 20, we know that a number in between 15 and 20 that is closest to 20 is probably going to be 19. Don't worry if you got 18, as long as you've got it in between, I would say 17, 18 or 19, but 19 is probably more accurate. Okay, so for this one, we know that the interval, the missing interval here is 45. Okay, and the arrow is pointing not that close to 40, so partly in the middle. So hopefully you would have got either 43 or maybe 42. Okay, so well done. Okay, so here we've got another number line again. We've got some whole numbers shown. And between each number that is marked, there is an interval that is not shown with a number. Before we saw on our last number line that each interval was worth 5. Are they worth 5 now? Let's take the first two numbers, 4 and 5. So we know that the gap between 4 and 5 is 1. So we've now got to work out what's half of 1, and that will tell us what to label this interval at. So half of 1 is a half, or as a decimal, we know that that is 0.5. So what number is going to be shown on this interval? It's going to be 4.5, exactly halfway between 4 and 5. So now we know that and we've worked that out, we can continue labelling the missing intervals. So this one is halfway between 5 and 6, so that would be 5.5, 6.5, 7.5 and 8.5. So a little bit of advice here, if you are asked to do some work on a number line and not all the numbers are shown, it's really useful to work out the intervals that aren't shown before trying to answer the question. Now we're going to look at a word that you may not have heard before, and it's called integers. So I've shown you two number lines on the board, and I've highlighted the integers on both of the number lines. So what can you tell me? I've highlighted them in blue. What can you tell me about all the numbers that have been highlighted? That's right, they are all whole numbers. I've not highlighted the decimals up here. I've highlighted the integers, and integers is simply a mathematical word for whole numbers. So what I'd like you to do now is have a little go at the question below. So pause the video. Can you work out which numbers are integers? So remember, integers is a mathematical term for whole numbers. So 13 and 9 are the integers here. 7.7 is not an integer because it has decimals, and same with 9.03. So what I'd like you to do now, I want you to pause the video here and I want you to have a go at questions 1 to 3 on your worksheet. Okay, so now we're looking at which integers does 7.2 lie between? Remember, these symbols mean the crocodile eats the bigger number. The crocodile eats the bigger number. Remember that? We did look at that a couple of months ago. Okay, so if you're struggling with this one, we can use a number line to help us. Okay, so we've got this number line is, we start with 7 and 8, okay? And then we've got lots of missing intervals on our number line. Okay, there are 10 missing intervals between 7 and 8. Okay, so the whole gap all the way along is only worth 1. So each small piece, each small interval is therefore worth 1/10 or 0.1. As we know, 1 divided by 10 is 0.1. So now we can start to label our number line. So 7, this one would then be 7.1, 7.2, which is our number. And we can clearly see that 7.2 lies between the integers, or the whole numbers, remember, 7 and 8. Okay? So what you need to do now is pause the video and have a go at questions 4 to 6 on your worksheet. Remember, the crocodile always eats. Remember, this is our crocodile. Crocodile always eats the bigger number. It's a very strange one-eyed crocodile, but still. Crocodile always eats the bigger number. So now let's have a look at rounding some decimals to the nearest integer or whole number. So this time our number line is between 12 and 13. Okay, just like the last, well, not like the last one, but between 12 and 13, and it's been split into 10 equal pieces. So we know that each piece is going to be worth 0.1 or 1/10, because remember from last time we know that 1 divided by 10 is 0.1. So now each of these is going to be worth 0.1. I'll write that on there just to remind you. Each one of these is going to be worth 0.1. Okay. So then we've got 12.1, 12.2, and then the number we're looking at is 12.3. So if we were going to round 12.3 to the nearest integer, is it closest to 12? So let's imagine, I'll try and draw this. If we were going to draw a number line, let me rub that out. If we were going to draw a number line to help us, so there's 12.3. Is it closer to 12, or is it closer to 13? It's closer to 12. So 12.3 rounded to the nearest integer is 12. Okay, let's have another one. So 12.9. So remember, if we were going to label this, we know 12.1, 12.2, let's get the other one, 12.3, 12.4, 12.5, 12.6, 12.7, 12.8, 12.9 would go here. So let's draw our arrows and see whether it is closest to 13 or whether it is closest to 12. What do we think? That's right, it's closest to 13. So 12.9 rounded to the nearest integer is 13. So now this one gets a little bit trickier, because if we looked at 12.5, it's exactly in the middle. So when we're rounding 12.5, we always round up. Okay, we don't round down, we round up. So 12.5 to the nearest whole number is 13. Very similar to when we would do, if we were rounding a whole number like 45, we know we would round it up to 50. Okay, so we always round up when it ends in a 5. So here, let's have a little look at this question. 5.1 rounded to the nearest whole number is 4. Is that correct? Have a little think. Pause the video and have a think. So to help us with this, I've got us a number line. And I've labelled 4 over here, 5 and 6. And we can see that 5.1 has been labelled on our number line. So let's have a look. Is 5.1 rounded to the nearest whole number 4? Or is 5.1 rounded to the nearest whole number 5? Okay, so don't get confused and try and round down a whole extra amount. If you do need a little bit of help and you're a bit stuck, draw yourself a number line or use a number line that you have on the sheet, and make sure you're not rounding it down too far. So 5.1 rounded to the nearest whole number is 5. Even if we had, let's say, 6.1 rounded to the nearest whole number is then going to be 6. So what you're going to do now is you're going to finish off your worksheets by having a go at questions 6 to 8. So I know we've done it a little bit differently this time with you doing the questions throughout the video. Don't worry if you've left it all to the end, it doesn't matter. Remember, you can always play back the video if you're finding any of the questions too tricky. So good luck with your work, and I'll see you soon.